Welcome to Kids Recall. In today's video, we'll be going through the 2006 movie Night at the Museum. It's time to recall. Let's get started. Turn on subtitles and spoilers ahead. The movie starts and we are taken to Brooklyn, where we see Larry going to his car to discover it has a boot on the tire. He then runs to his friend to ask where his son Nick is. His friend tells him that his ex-wife's new boyfriend took him home. Larry returns to his ex-wife's house only to reveal that he may get evicted soon and move to Queens. He then takes Nick to play ice hockey. After the game is over, they walk in the park and Nick reveals that he doesn't want to be a hockey player anymore, but a bond trader like his mother's boyfriend. Nick asks if he is really moving again, and Larry feels really bad for his son and goes on to say that he's going to find a job so he's not evicted. The scene then changes to Larry at a job office. He's being interviewed by a woman who could possibly give him a job somewhere. She tells Larry that she has never seen a resume like his. He thanks her only to discover that it wasn't a compliment. They discuss different things about his resume, including his invention, the snapper, which is a spin-off of the clapper for lights. She's about to dismiss him when he explains to her how much he really needs a job. After a small pause, she sighs and gives him the address of the Museum of Natural History, saying that everybody she sent over there got turned down, but Larry might get lucky. We then go on to see Larry walking in the Museum of Natural History. He walks up to the desk clerk to ask for a man named Cecil. She indicates that Cecil should be in his office and introduces herself as Rebecca. She shows Larry around the room a bit before Dr. McPhee interrupts to exclaim that children are touching the exhibits. Rebecca goes on with her work while Larry proceeds to Cecil's office to try out his luck. He enters the room, and as he sits in front of that man, Cecil explains to him that the museum is losing money and they are going to fire him and his two co-workers, Gus and Reginald, and that they're looking for one new guard to replace them. Larry is unsure if he should take the job since they are night guards, and he doesn't like the idea of staying up all night in the museum. He then thinks about his son and the other necessities and eventually agrees, and Cecil tells him to go wait outside and he will catch up with him to show him around the museum. After Harry leaves, Reginald asks Cecil if he thinks he's the one. Cecil responds by saying, "Oh yeah, he's the one." Cecil then goes on to show him around the diorama room and with the Mayan culture, the Roman culture, and the Western culture. After Larry leaves the room, he cannot find Cecil. He calls his name a few times, and we see a figure following him. He taps Larry's shoulder and Larry screams. The figure takes off his mask to reveal Cecil dressed in Indian clothing. Cecil laughs because he scared Larry, but reminds him not to mess with anything. Moving on, Cecil shows him Attila the Hun, the Easter Island head, and the Hall of African Mammals. Larry notices the monkey and Cecil says that they are called the monkey Dexter. After they leave the room, they enter the Pharaoh's chamber and Cecil shows Larry the Pharaoh's tomb and the tablet of Ankh-Men-Ra, which he reveals is 24-karat gold. Larry is about to start his first day of work and the three guards are there to give him what he needs. Cecil gives him his keys to lock the gates and his flashlight. He also pulls out an instruction manual and gives it to Larry. Cecil tells him to turn a few lights on since it gets a little spooky in there. He also tells him in a very serious tone not to let anything in or out. Larry is confused by this, but he doesn't say anything and just goes back to work. He stays up for a while and then falls asleep, and after a while he wakes up by falling out of his chair. He gets up and walks around the room to find that the Tyrannosaurus Rex is missing. He calls out Cecil's name thinking that it is Cecil pulling another prank on him. When he hears something down the hall, he clicks on the flashlight to find the dinosaur drinking from the water fountain. In shock, Larry drops his flashlight, and the dinosaur hears this and stops drinking. He roars and runs towards Larry. He tries to run and hide by ducking under the front desk. He calls Cecil, who tells him to read the instructions and hangs up. The dinosaur picks up the desk in its mouth and throws it across the room. Larry pulls out the instruction manual and reads the first instruction, which is to throw the bone. Larry's confused until a large rib bone drops in front of him, and Larry picks it up and hurls it across the room. Larry then tries to run out, but the T-Rex appears in front of him, drops the bone, and pushes it to Larry, suggesting he wants it to be thrown again. Larry realizes that the dinosaur wants to play fetch, and he throws the bone again. But this time, the T-Rex's tail hits Larry and throws him into the stairs. Larry then flees the room. As Larry is running, he passes a caveman who are trying to create fire. He runs into the Easter Island head, who calls him Dum Dum, and Larry is supposed to bring him Gum Gum. The head warns Larry to run as Attila the Hun shows up and chases Larry into the elevator. Larry goes into the room where Sacagawea is on display, and he asks her what's going on. However, he's behind the glass, so she can't hear him. Larry falls backward, and a Civil War soldier points a gun over Larry's neck and fires at other soldiers. Larry manages to escape unharmed. Larry goes up the elevator into the Hall of African Mammals. He reads the next instructions, which are to lock up the lions or they'll eat him. He drops the manual and it sails into the middle of the room, right in front of the lions. Larry runs for the manual, quickly runs through the trees, and closes the gate behind him. He reads the next instructions, which is to double-check his belt because the monkey probably stole his keys. He checks and his keys are missing. He looks up to see Dexter holding his keys. As Larry tries to get them back, Dexter bites his nose and pees on him. Dexter then steals the instruction manual and rips it in half. Furious, Larry goes and sits in the diorama room. He then sees small Mayan warriors and they start shooting small arrows in his hand. Larry, having no other choice, gets out of there too. He then sees the Western exhibit and stands in front of it. He hears a noise below him and looks down to see that some small Western people have tied his feet together. He turns around, but they push him off his feet onto the train tracks in the exhibit. Just then we see Jedediah yelling at the cowboys to hog-tie him. The cowboys throw ropes over his body and they hold him down on the train track. The track is, though, too small and only Larry's head can fit on it. They reveal that they're tired of being locked up in the exhibit every night, and Jedediah gives the order to start the train. Larry begs Jed to stop the train, but Jed refuses. The train hits Larry in the head, but derails without doing much damage. Larry, having enough of it, goes on to break the ropes and leaves. We then go on to see an army of small Roman soldiers ready to attack Larry. Jedediah reveals the leader to be Octavius, and he tells the army to unleash hell, and they start shooting fireballs at Larry. He runs away and is rescued by Teddy Roosevelt. Jedediah then yells him, telling him that Teddy will not always be there to protect him, and they ride away on his horse. When they stop in the main room, Larry asks him why everything is alive, and Teddy takes him to the Pharaoh's chamber. We see the Pharaoh struggling in a sarcophagus, and Teddy yells that he's not getting out. He points to the tablet and tells Larry that the tablet is why everything comes alive at night. He tells Larry that it's his job to make sure that nothing gets out of the museum, otherwise they will turn to dust if the sun comes up while they are outside. Teddy helps Larry get everyone together, and this is when Larry goes on to decide that he's not going to continue this job. Teddy, however, tells him that it's not everyone's cup of tea to do this, and adds that he's a hero for being in the museum at night. This is when the sun comes out and everything goes back to normal. Cecil and the others show up. Larry goes to them and he is pissed off. He asks them why on earth they didn't tell him the truth about the job. Cecil says that even if they told him, he would never have believed them. Larry quits and exits the museum. And on the museum steps, Larry encounters Nick on his way to school. Nick tells him that he loves that Larry works at the museum. Larry promises to give him a tour sometime. Now Larry must go back inside and get his job back. Dr. McPhee calls Larry to the diorama room to find that a Roman figure is in the stockades in the Western culture diorama. Thinking that Larry did it, Dr. McPhee warns him not to try anything like that again. Larry runs back to Cecil and asks him if he has any other instruction manual, since Dexter ripped his apart. Cecil doesn't have another copy, but advises Larry to read about history, that it could help. Larry sees Rebecca giving a tour to some kids and decides to join them. He laughs when Rebecca says that the monkey is known for its generous and loving nature. He calls her aside to ask her if Sacagawea was deaf since she could not hear him the night before. Rebecca is annoyed by his interruptions and asks why is he following them. Larry says that he just has some questions and gets Rebecca to agree to meet him later for a cup of coffee to discuss history. Rebecca reveals that she's working on a dissertation about Sacagawea and admires her a lot. Larry goes to the library and tries to read up on the stuff in the museum. Later on, Larry's about to get ready for his shift when Cecil and the other security guards come in to wish him good luck and to say goodbye as this is their last day at work. Cecil asks Larry to walk them out, but Reginald stays behind. Cecil says it's because Reginald is very emotional. While Reginald lingers, he makes a clay mold of Larry's key. Larry goes off to begin his shift, and Larry begins by ripping off one of the T-Rex's rib bones and attaching it to a remote-controlled car to keep T-Rex entertained while chasing it. He goes to the caveman, still looking for ways to create fire, and throws them a lighter. He goes over to the Easter Island head and gives him the gum that he asked for yesterday. He goes into the diorama room. He puts on a mitt to protect himself from the arrows of the Mayan people will throw while he closes the glass to their diorama. He moves to close the glass to the Roman culture diorama when he sees them breaking down their wall to expand. He moves over to the Western culture diorama to see that Jedediah is giving the order to blow the mountain with dynamite. Larry tells them not to as he will only hit a wall, but Jed tells them to detonate it anyway, but only a little puff of smoke results. Larry asks them what they are doing, and Jedediah responds by saying that they're working on Manifest Destiny. Larry, fed up, grabs Octavius and Jedediah and tells them that he's going to let both their cultures roam free if they promise to behave. They both promise and Larry exits the room. Larry then proceeds to the Hall of African Mammals and tells Dexter to go inside. Dexter goes into the room and Larry locks the door. Dexter thinks he stole the keys and holds up a set of baby keys. Larry locks the gate in triumph, thinking he's outsmarted Dexter. He continues his rounds and finds Teddy looking at Sacagawea again. Larry advises Teddy to just go and say hello to her. Larry leaves and Teddy goes up to the glass and is about to say hi to her, but walks away too shy. After a while, all the creatures and the animals again go free. Turns out Dexter has finally actually stolen the keys, and he's the one who let everyone out. There is chaos again, and Larry decides to quit. When he's about to go out, the statue points him to go look out the window, and when he does, he sees a caveman outside and the sun rising. As he looks on, the caveman turns to dust. That day, the boss goes in to tell Larry that his son Nick, who has come to the museum, sees this. Nick leaves really upset. Larry goes to him and tells him that he did not get fired and offers him to come with him while he's at work that night. Nick arrives at the museum, and Larry sits Nick down on the front desk and tells him that the dinosaur is about to come to life. It's the time things usually animate, but nothing comes to life. Nick is upset and thinks his dad is lying to him. Larry takes him to the Pharaoh's chamber to discover the tablet is missing. Larry runs to where the tablet should be and turns around to see that Nick is gone. He runs and sees Nick going down the stairs to leave. Then they see a shadow of someone outside. They proceed to investigate. Nick finds a shopping cart containing the tablet and he removes the tablet. Cecil and the other security guards come out of the darkness and tell Nick to give them the tablet. Larry tells Nick to turn the middle square on the tablet, which will make everything come alive. Nick, conflicted about whom to believe, eventually turns the middle piece. The three guards prepare to fight. Larry tells Nick to take the tablet and run. Gus starts to run after him, but Larry stops him and gets knocked to the floor. Larry gets up and Gus punches him twice. Cecil kicks him to the floor again and explains how they loved working there. They explain that the tablet has also given them new life. When they found out they were going to get fired, they had to do something. They reveal that they planted the goods in his desk to frame him. Cecil then takes the tablet and locks Nick and Larry in the Egyptian room. Larry releases Akhmun-Ra's mummy from his sarcophagus, and the pharaoh helps Larry and Nick escape. They find the other exhibits fighting amongst themselves, and Larry convinces them to unite and catch the guards and recover the tablet. Gus and Reginald are captured, while Cecil escapes in a Pony Express stagecoach, and Teddy pushes Sacagawea out of Cecil's path and is sliced in half. Larry pursues Cecil into Central Park, stopping him and regaining the tablet, and Teddy finally bonds with Sacagawea as she repairs him. Rebecca sees the exhibit returning to the museum and realizes the truth, and Larry introduces her to Sacagawea. The next day, McPhee fires Larry after news reports about the night's strange events, such as the Neanderthals leaving cave paintings in the museum's subway station and Rexy's dinosaur tracks in Central Park. But the publicity boosts museum attendance. Larry is rehired and celebrates that night with Nick and the exhibits. In the credits, we see that Cecil, Gus, and Reginald are forced to work as museum janitors as punishments for their crimes. And with that, the movie comes to an end. Subscribe for more videos like this and turn on the notification. And leave a like to help our channel out. Thank you for watching.